Welcome back, everyone, to the Ancestral Cure podcast. Today, I've got a very special guest. She is a breathwork facilitator. She is a nervous system coach, I guess you could say, but also an energy healer. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Brain body
Um,
practitioner, holistic psychotherapist, all the things.
Amazing. Yeah. Please welcome Kaitlyn Menere. Kaitlyn, how are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me. This is so exciting.
Yeah, because as I was telling, as we were saying just now, I discovered you during the whole when I discovered the whole circadian health paradigm. Um,
Mm.
but you've obviously been talking a lot about like nervous system and stress, mental health. Um, so I think it'd be great since obviously the circadian stuff matters, nutrition matters, but mental health, nervous system, how stressed we are, this can all impact our health. So I'd love for you to give a bit of an introduction to, I guess, your health background, your journey, and how you got started with this whole nervous system, brain body practitioner work.
Yeah, wow. Such a big, deep question. And I mentioned to you before, like I can go on a big rabbit hole here, but we'll briefly like touch on the surface. So I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease. When was it? About 5 years ago. And before that, I was gluten intolerant, dairy intolerant. I was vegan for a little bit. I thought I ate a relatively quote unquote healthy Western diet until I was diagnosed with Crohn's. And before this, I was a really big party animal. I wouldn't say I was into personal development. I wasn't health conscious. I went to the gym occasionally. I had no idea what circadian rhythm meant. I had no idea what the nervous system even was. And so I went on this journey where I was hospitalized with Crohn's disease, maybe like 8 or 9 times within an 18-month period. It was extremely severe, lots of operations. I had drains and pipes coming out of my body. And the only thing my doctors said was, you need to go on this medication. It's a biologic medication. Inject yourself. It will lower your immune system. Therefore, your body can like heal from the inflammation. And then you also need to take some tablets because your body will probably build up a defense to this medication. So we also need to like combat that. See ya. And I stayed like that for about a year, got so unhappy, got so miserable. Sure, my Crohn's symptoms disappeared, but it didn't actually heal anything. It just Band-Aid fixed it. And one day I discovered breathwork. There was these absolute freaks on the beach near me during lockdown doing cold water ocean swims in winter and breathwork on the beach. And I was like, these absolute weirdos, what's going on? Joined them one day and it completely changed my life. And I guess from there, and I'm sure we'll talk about it, but I went on this journey of discovering who I was, discovering that there's actually so much more to healing and to life than what we're told by the Western medical system. I started studying holistic psychotherapy, holistic counseling, nervous system realignment therapy, because I was just so intrigued with the body. And from there, I started healing my Crohn's naturally. I'll be sober. I think it will be 5 years in November. I went on a carnivore diet. I started understanding my nervous system, my sleep, my circadian rhythm, my stress levels, and it's been this whole journey over the last 5 years where now I'm in remission and I help others with their nervous system through breath work, through, I guess, psychotherapy as well.
That's really inspiring. I think there definitely is a common theme where people go to their doctor and they just get a band-aid solution, whether it's pills or like lifelong surgeries or whatnot, procedures. But again, they're not actually healing the underlying root cause. And I think a lot of people sort of fall into this holistic paradigm through, I think it's like nutrition first, and then they discover circadian rhythm. But then you've obviously moved on to the next level, I guess, which is like nervous system, stress management. Um, and when you were on this like personal healing journey, did it feel kind of isolating as you were shifting from that like party phase to the more holistic focus on your health, self-improvement phase of your life?
Yeah, absolutely. I guess my journey started through nervous system first, and I kind of entered the holistic space through breath work, nervous system, stress, and then circadian biology, quantum, all of that was, I guess, kind of the last pieces of the puzzle for me. But I absolutely agree in that majority of people in this space have come from that party background or that like wild background, and now they're holistic health coaches. And I just think that's so cool. But for sure, it was isolating. I completely changed. It would have felt like overnight from my friends. One weekend, I'm on the bags drinking with them, and the next, I'm saying, "Oh, I'm not drinking anymore." And then I'm not going out and going wherever they're inviting me to the pub, to the club, whatever. It's like, I can't because I actually want to go do this cold ocean swim and do breath work on the beach. And it's not to say that my friends were bad people or anything like that. They're such beautiful people. But when you start to go in different directions and my life's going this way and I'm no longer interested in getting fucked up every weekend, I actually enjoy not being hungover on a Sunday. My friends are still in that phase. It's not to say one's right, one's wrong, but there's that natural separation that occurs. And I think it's what stops a lot of people from going down this path because they go, but my friends aren't on this path. And what if I lose my friends? And I lost all my friends. I lost one of my best friends. We were best friends for 10 years. And I haven't spoken to her in since the night before I went sober was the last night I saw her. So almost 5 years, I haven't spoken to her and we were best friends for 10 years. Groups of friends gone, but they have all been replaced with better aligned friends. So like super isolating at a point, but I think it's really necessary.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's worth it when you meet like-minded people who share the same values as you and belief systems. But because there's so little of us, it's unlikely that you'll find like a whole group of people. You'll have to like for me, it's been like individual people. And then I'm
Hmm.
like, right, let's make a group. And since we've all got the same values, but how do you think people can identify, like, I guess you could say fake friends, superficial friendships, friendships that would end once you started living true to who you were and um, living with alignment with yourself?
That's such a good question. I think really it comes down to shared values. So I think people are really quick to cut off friends just because you're not particularly into the same things as them. But I think if there's a shared value, it can really work. So one of my friends, she is really into her health, but it expresses completely differently to what my health is like. I also have, excuse me, another friend who's a vegan, and he's one of my closest friends, and I'm literally on a strict carnivore diet. But because we both see our diets as being the most healing, beautiful thing we can do for our body, we're actually really aligned. So it's not necessarily about always having the same beliefs and being in an echo chamber. I think there's this really cool part of having the same value system that allows you to create really beautiful connections with people.
Yeah, because I've got a mate who she doesn't eat red meat. I guess she eats chicken, but like she's not into red meat and all that. But she's super into wellness, like holistic
Mm,
wellness. So I think there's a beauty to like people with different lifestyles, but still ultimately having the same values. But then would you say that there's like an easier way to tell if someone's just like a fake friend to cut off, or like
yeah.
people in who you might have used to be friends with, but then something changed?
Yeah. Well, I think it depends on asking yourself a few different questions on do they celebrate you or like do you actually feel like you can be yourself around your friends? Do you feel that you're fearful of being misunderstood or being judged if you were to suggest something or say something or be really honest about what you're doing or how you want to live? So I think it's not so much an audit of your friendships, but an audit of how you feel in your friendships. Because it's not really to do with that person, right? It's always to do with our internal state. Why do you not feel comfortable to be honest with that friend that you don't want to go out drinking? Why do you not feel comfortable to wear your blue light blockers around that friend when you're going to the movies with them? That's a you thing. So I would clock that and I would also think about what you do with that friend. So my old friends, we just used to get drunk all the time together and we just used to party and that was our shared value. As soon as that started to change for me, that was no longer the common interest and the shared value. So naturally, we separated. And it wasn't so much that they were fake friends, but they were built on something that I no longer resonated with. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. Because it's not like it doesn't have to be toxic or malicious, like I'm
Yeah.
cutting you off. It's just if you've not got the same, if you're not resonating on the same frequency, then it becomes a lot easier to, I guess, detach yourself from that and align yourself with people who do resonate with that same frequency. But on the topic of like stress and nervous system, how much of an impact do you think like your friendships and your relationships have on your nervous system?
Mm. One of the biggest impacts, like they say that the best thing for someone is their nerve is another person's nervous system, and the worst thing for someone is another person's nervous system, right? Because we are constantly communicating internally and externally with other people's nervous systems. It's how we detect threats, it's how we detect safety. And so if your external environment through your friends is super chaotic, is threatening to your nervous system, that's going to cause internal stress towards you. And we see it work the other way as well. I'm sure you've heard like being in this industry where you get the 90-year-old old Italian men, right? And they're living in Florence or wherever they live and they're smoking a pack a day. They're sitting there in the sun with their black coffee and or their wine, their homegrown wine, and they live such long lives, right? And it's not because of their diet necessarily, but it's because they have such a strong community around them. And yes, of course, they're out in the sun. They're probably like eating like quite organic, but you know what I mean? They're
Yeah.
smoking, they're drinking, they're doing all these things, but it's because they have such strong community around them. And I think, especially as you move into the holistic space, or like if you're on your holistic journey, finding your tribe, finding community who gets it can be so incredibly powerful, or can also work to your detriment if you don't have that support network as well.
Right, yeah, I agree because it's obviously a lot of people they feel quite isolated when they start and that can actually
Yeah.
exacerbate their symptoms if it's causing them stress and isolation. But then like you said, once they've found their tribe, then everything starts to like fall into place. And I think we live in this like modern world where everyone's got dysregulated nervous systems. So
Mhm.
what do you think are some of the biggest causes of that? And how does someone know if that's like the one thing that's holding them back from their health issues?
Mm. Well, if we look at it from the point of view of the nervous system is pretty much central to everything. And you can do, or you can take all the peptides, you can take all the supplements that you want, but if your nervous system is dysregulated, your body's probably not even going to absorb them. You can exercise all you want to lose weight, but if your body's literally in a state of survival, you are not going to lose fat. You know, it's actually at the root of everything that we do. So when we look at it from that perspective of how important is it and like coming back to your original question, it's like then if the nervous system is central, then everything else ripples out into it. And when we're looking at friendships, when we're looking at healing, it's just like it needs to be it needs to be the focus. And I think in today's society and the modern world, in terms of like what's dysregulating people, I think we are so disconnected. And that's causing the dysregulation. But we're living in this world of false connection through social media, through technology, which like of course has um it's got its great things, right? Like we get to
Yeah.
connect. We're in completely different sides of the world. So like incredible that we get to do that. But I think we're relying too much on technology to give us a sense of connection, and it's leading us to be more disconnected and more dysregulated.
Right, yeah, and I think things like politics and like
Mm.
checking the news constantly, or I guess even just with social media, like seeing what your friends are up to, and if you're not there, it can create that like sense of isolation and stress on your nervous system. So yeah, I think social media, technology, and I think like lack of community, because like you said, even though we've got such a bigger like outreach when it comes to social media. A lot of us are like depressed and have anxiety. We're
Mm.
isolated. So I think it's a real paradox how we live in the most connected generation, but we're very disconnected, like you said.
Yeah. And if you think about it as well, our nervous systems, our bodies, they're not biologically wired to be in connection with this many people. When we
Mm.
look back into evolution, depending on how you believe humans came here or whatever it is, but we are biologically wired to know around 150 people. And then we enter this modern age where I can pick up my phone now and within 10 seconds, I can have about 150 people's different opinions in 10 seconds, right? Imagine that throughout my my week, my day. That is a lot of opinions. That is a lot of people. And we are just literally, our systems are not wired to have that. We're not wired to know that many people. We're not wired to compare ourselves to that many people, especially when we look at how other people are living and like things people post on social media. And that's like a whole nother kettle of fish. But it's just like our nervous systems actually aren't created in a way that allows us to do that. It's just going to detect that as a threat.
Right, yeah, I think one of the best things you can do for your nervous system is probably just like unfollow a lot of people on social media.
Yeah.
Like just all of the white noise, the background noise, just following like a couple hundred, maybe less than that, rather than like 800, 2,000 people just flooding your social media feeds and stressing you out. And I have to like you wake up and you're like, oh, I have to make sure I hear every single person's opinion on every single topic,
Mm,
and it just gets so stressful for your nervous system. Obviously, people talk about like artificial blue light being a stressor, and it is, but with the whole social media aspect of it, like waking up, checking the news, it's just like you said, very stressful in the nervous system. Um,
mm.
so what would you?
And even if
Yeah.
you, oh, sorry,
Oh, yeah, go
I was
ahead.
going to say, even if you don't feel stressed, I think that's the biggest thing because people will wake up and they'll check Instagram like it's the news, or they'll check the news and they won't feel a stress response in their body, but it doesn't mean it's not stressful in the body.
Right, yeah. I think there are a lot of these micro stressors which all add up and accumulate. Um, are there any other habits you'd think are just like basic habits that people do which just upregulate their stress levels, their cortisol in their daily lives that they might not be
Yeah.
aware of?
I think like waking up and checking your phone first thing is like an instant stress response in the body, regardless of like how much you curate your feed. Obviously, we've got the blue light from the phone, which is going to fuck with like your cortisol and your melatonin levels. Sorry, but then you've also got like what's that's actually doing to your dopamine, what is that doing to your cortisol? Having that screen, having all that information when your brain is in that brainwave state first thing in the morning, it's just like spongy as. So that's setting you off to be super dysregulated. I also think people are not allowing themselves enough time to be bored or enough time in stillness or in silence. We live in this generation, this society where we are constantly consuming, and people really struggle to go for a walk and not listen to anything. They're in the car, they're listening to something. They're going and they're stopped at the lights. Now they're checking their phone. Now they're on another walk and they've got a podcast in or they're calling a friend. You know, they are constantly doing things instead of being alone with their own thoughts or alone just in silence, just in stillness. And I'm not saying that you need to go and sit down and meditate for half an hour, but give your mind a little break for a hot minute and it will really help with dysregulation.
Yeah, this is something that I've definitely implemented where it's if I'm on a walk, like I can just walk in silence and be my own thoughts, without music or on podcasts. And I
Mm.
just think it's so healing because not only are you listening to like the sounds of nature or you're just observing things, but you're also just in your own head and you're spending time with your own thoughts. And I just think it's like one of the best ways to sort of calibrate that nervous system, get back to baseline, and just detox from all of the opinions and white noise that you might be dealing with.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like some of my best ideas come from that space. So like when we're talking about like social media and like business and all of that, like some of my best content ideas or my biz event ideas or things that I wouldn't have been able to think of if I was constantly being bombarded by other people's thoughts or consuming other people's content, I wouldn't have time for my own thoughts. And that's the same with everyone. And like you said, it's so healing. Like having space allows you to process different things and it allows you to have different thoughts, which allows you to have a different experience.
Yeah. So when people come to you with like dysregulated nervous systems, um,
Hmm.
I think I saw you posted a reel where you said that like you had a client come to you with to ask for tips for nervous system regulation and you said no. So I thought that was quite interesting. Do you want to expand on that?
Yes, so this is a long-term client. So we've been working together for around 9 months. And this caused a little bit of a ruckus on the internet because people were like, this is really unethical of you, blah, 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 whatever they said. But there's nuance to this. If it was just any client and I just started working with them, for sure, I'm like, here's what you do. But the reason I said no to this client is because we've been working together for a long time and I understood her on a deeper level. And By her asking for tips and tricks, I knew that it was her unconscious way of getting out of actually doing the lifestyle changes that she needed to create a more regulated lifestyle. And the reason I shared this and my point of this reel was to say that people are looking for really quick, easy tips and tricks of here's 5 tips to regulate your nervous system. Here's 10 steps to fix your circadian rhythm. And it's all of these like quick fix things. But you would know, and I'm sure you've had many of these conversations before, but when it comes to nervous system work, circadian work, all of these things, it's the unsexy, boring habits that actually make the difference. It's the things like not checking your phone as soon as you wake up. It's the 10 minutes of deep belly breathing. It's wearing your blue light blockers. It's having all your lights off at night. It's getting like 8,000 steps a day. It's going to the gym. It's all of these things that are not like fun and sexy and easy and quick. It's just like monotonous daily habits that will actually lead to a sustainable result, especially when regulating your nervous system.
Right. Yeah, because I think with healing, a lot of it is just doing less rather than doing more. And
Yes.
if people have dysregulated nervous systems and you're giving them like a 20-step routine, sometimes that can just be so much more compounding stress. And you even see
Yeah.
this with like self-help books where people just get lost in self-help. And I think a lot of them can be useful, but if you're the type of person where you've like if it's causing you to be like, right, I've got to read this book and then do this meditation exercise and then do all these steps and routines and habits, then I think a lot of the time that can just do a lot more harm than good.
Yeah, absolutely, because it takes you away from the point of healing. Like, I fully believe that the point of healing is to reach a balance back in within yourself, and then it just becomes another to-do list and another like action step, but it's dressed up with this holistic healing lens. And it feels a bit fancier for the ego and it feels a little bit more healing, but it's exactly the same thing. And you're not moving with intention anymore. You're moving through a to-do list, but instead of go for a 10K run and do all these shitty tasks, it's like read a self-help book, meditate, but the intention is still lost. And I always say to my clients, the first step isn't a 20-step regulation routine. It's actually what can we remove, right? Can we remove some things? Can we stop drinking? Can we stop having oxy-shred every day? Can we minimize your caffeine intake? Can we actually start to remove shit from your life before we start to add more good things? Because that's going to do more damage if we don't remove it.
Exactly, like doom scrolling, people pleasing. You
Yeah.
also got like
Negative self-talk.
exactly, yeah, watching a movie or like I guess watching something when you're having lunch, like or like answering emails. That just puts you in
Yeah.
such a state of stress. And when you're eating, especially, it's like that's messing up your stomach acid, digestion, gut health. So it's like all of these systems come downstream of nervous system.
Yeah, yeah. And this is why I work nervous system first because it affects everything. And like I said, you can do all the circadian work, the lymphatic work, all of that. But at the root of everything, if your vagus nerve is like firing at the fucking minute of every day, nothing else is going to work. It all works downstream from there.
Right. So let's talk a bit about what sort of techniques you'd use when helping clients with their nervous system. So we've talked about breath work, and
Hmm.
we've talked about like just basic like removing stressors, but what else do you do with clients?
Yeah, so I work top down and bottom up. So top down would be looking at their day-to-day lifestyle choices. So similar to what we've been speaking about. What can we remove? Can we remove processed foods? Can we remove scrolling? Can we remove negative self-talk? Is there habits that are actually affecting their nervous system and leading to dysregulation that we can quickly nip in the bud? And it's not to say that it's a fast process, but it's more like on a day-to-day level, what can we change here, right? And so we work from this top layer. It might be things like including meditation and breath work because we know that they're really good. It might be like, okay, this week now for your when you have your shower at night, instead of having the big light on, you're going to light a candle. Like it sometimes gets to be just like really simple things. Other times it's like, okay, maybe 7 cups of coffee a day isn't great for your anxiety. Let's cut that down, and we work on these daily habit things and the identity around it because there's no point me giving you a 20-step regulation routine if then when we stop working together, you're just going to go and get fucked up again, right? We want long-term sustainable changes. So top down and then bottom up. with clients is a deeper level. So we look at the unconscious, subconscious patterning and rewiring that's going on because typically the conditioning from the nervous system, it's responding from a past experience. And 95% of the time, we're operating from our subconscious mind. Only 5% of the time is our conscious mind. So things like our autonomic nervous system is connected to our breathing, our blinking, our digestion. That's all automatic. Sure, we can override it, so I can choose to blink now, but most of the time I'm just blinking naturally as a you.
Yeah.
It's the same with our subconscious mind connected to our autonomic nervous system, meaning that 95% of the time we are just operating like a computer program. So when we do the bottom up work, it's actually working on why is your nervous system, why is your amygdala detecting a threat? What is that perceiving it as? What stories are coming up? And how can we work on the deeper level and the top level together? So we kind of like meet in the middle to create sustainable changes.
Right. So it's like the habits that you can control, and then the autonomic stuff, which will come once you've like identified what's causing that trigger.
Yeah.
So we've talked about like social media, toxic friendships, I guess, relationships. Are there any other stressors you think might be causing that like bottom up autonomic response?
Yeah, well, a lot of that will come from childhood conditioning. So, depending on how you were brought up, the way that you believe, the way that you think about yourself, the relationship that you have to money, the relationship that you have to others, the self-worth that you have, that is all going to be expressed in the way that you communicate with the world. And so, a lot of the work that we do, similar to how you mentioned people pleasing before, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's a conditioned learnt response in the nervous system that is basically at some given point in time in your childhood, you would have learnt that need to take responsibility for other people's feelings. And so then when we look at people pleasing, it's actually about, say I was a people pleaser, it's about me avoiding the discomfort that I have to have by upsetting you by saying no.
Right.
So it's actually not about the other person, but it gets this like cute connotation of like, I'm a people pleaser. It's like you're actually just avoiding the discomfort of someone being upset at you. That's why you people please. That's the conditioned nervous system response. So a lot of these things that we exhibit in our society now, and we label them as like cute little habits, they're actually nervous system conditioning.
Right. Yeah, because people pleasing's like um obviously people talk about like setting boundaries. Setting
Hmm.
boundaries and like um not letting people, I guess, like we've said, like dysregulate your nervous system. Do you think there's like a point where people take it too far, where it's like they have to have all these boundaries, and eventually it's like they're not learning how to deal with stress, they're just avoiding it altogether?
Absolutely. Absolutely. They pendulum swing the complete like other direction where they'll set all these boundaries and then they're just living, like I said, in an echo chamber where no one disagrees with them and everything's like all well and good. Or they just have like absolutely no one in their life
Right,
because they've just set all of these boundaries and they're never actually going to learn how to deal with any type of conflict, any type of disagreement because they've pushed everyone out. And that's not a way to live, one, but that's also not a way to heal anything. And you can't just go through life avoiding any type of disagreement or any type of conflict. That's not a strong nervous system. That's not a strong human. What is a strong human is being able to have a beautiful conversation with someone that you disagree with and not letting it affect you, or not needing to set a boundary externally because you can hold it internally.
right. So it's about finding that balance between like being able to disagree with people and
Mm,
um but then also you don't want to be surrounding yourself with like people who just aren't going to listen to you, people who aren't arguing in good faith. Like there is a balance to be held between like the two extremes. I think so, like being a people
yeah.
pleaser and being surrounded by people who just are committed to misunderstanding you. I like that like sort of wording. They're just committed to
Mm,
misunderstanding you, and there's absolutely nothing you can say to like convince them because they don't want to listen. Versus people who they if they say one thing you disagree with, it's like I'm triggered, like I need my safe space. Um,
yeah.
so I guess a lot of like relationship work just falls in the middle.
Yeah, yeah. And it's about being able to discern what's right for you, right? Because there will be someone who needs to be around the people that are not available for those conversations. So they learn to be okay with being misunderstood. and
Yeah.
being able to stand in their power and stand in their truth around people who are committed to misunderstanding them. And that will be so powerful for one person. But then for the other person, they've spent their whole life doing that. So it's actually really powerful for them to go, you know what? This isn't for me. I'm going to actually remove myself. And there's no one size fits all, right? It's really, really person to person dependent.
Right, yeah. And to go back to like the techniques you recommend, so obviously like
Mm.
breath work, meditation, do you ever use sound therapy?
Yep. So I do
Yeah.
sound healing. So I have crystal bowls that I use in my breathwork sessions. I also recommend boxing or some kind of like physical activity as a
Yeah.
nervous system regulator. And there's different types, right? We have like maintenance nervous system regulation activities like breathwork, like meditation, like shaking, like dancing around, like getting your feet on the grass, humming, all of those things. But then we also have things that you can do or techniques that you can do in the moment. And that is when you feel that activation arise and you feel yourself going into that stress response, then it's like, okay, that energy needs to move. So what can you do to expel that energy or calm down that energy to reach balance as well? So I like to look at nervous system regulation in two different ways. But my biggest tip, if you are in an activated state, is to let the energy move in the way that it wants. So people always say like, oh, I just got so pissed off or so stressed. I just wanted to scream. I'm like, and why didn't you?
Mm,
Oh, I didn't know that I could, right? Because we're taught from a young age, don't make noise, don't scream, don't be loud, don't have a tantrum. But sometimes the energy just needs to come out so you can expel it and then you can come back into normal. Or I don't mean normal in that way, back into baseline. We are probably the only creatures that don't just get rid of our stress response and like shake off our adrenaline. We'll see it if you ever watch like National Geographic or any type of like wildlife show. A lion will chase a zebra, running, 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 and then it outruns the lion and it's safe and it gets to the watering hole and it will shake and it's literally shaking off its stress response. But humans don't. They go, "Oh my God, I'm so insanely stressed because I started my morning on my phone and I've read all the news about the war and the fuel prices and I'm so stressed and now I'm stressed because my friends didn't like my post and I'm stressed because all of this stuff and now I'm on the train to work and now my train's late and now my boss is yelling at me and I'm just gonna sit and I'm going to sit and I'm going to sit and then I'm going to scroll and then I'm going to scroll and then I'm going to scroll and I'm going to numb and I'm going to numb and then I'm going to catch the train home and then I'm going to drink." And then we
yeah,
go, why am I so stressed?
exactly. And I mean, to mention the sound therapy thing, because my cousin actually does sound therapy for people, like
Mm,
gongs
cool.
and yeah, gongs, the crystal bowls, the alchemy bowls. And there's a lot of research coming out to show that like the frequencies from the gongs and the crystal bowls, like these are mimicking the frequencies that heal our internal systems, like nervous system.
Hmm.
And if you look at like history, they had these huge bells, like these church bells in these old cities, and this is how they
Yeah.
used to heal people. But what you said about the like suppressing your anger, that makes a lot of sense because I think a lot of the time when people get like these huge outbursts, it's not because it's not because they've got, well, maybe some of them might have anger issues or like they might have to work on their temper. But I think for a lot of people, it's like they've just suppressed it so much so that when it does come out, it's like it's like a huge spike in their anger.
Yeah. And learning to how to have it and express it in a healthy way is one of the best things that you can do because anger isn't a bad emotion, but a lot of us are taught growing up that it is. It's a negative emotion, it's a bad emotion. You never want to feel angry. But anger is just a sign that your boundaries are being crossed in some way, shape, or form. And when you can learn to healthily express anger and let it out, like it actually changes the game for your emotional regulation.
Yeah, so I'd love to talk a bit about like the wellness industry as a whole, the holistic wellness industry. Um, and I guess we could sort of split it into like what are some things that you think have to improve, like what are your future predictions, but then also like um there's that side of it. But then, yeah, like with holistic wellness, how easy is it for people to like find their, well, I guess we talked about like finding their tribe, but like, how do you know it's right for you? And like, there's all these different subcategories of it.
Yeah, wow. Big question. Yeah, how do you find your tribe? How do you find your subcategories? I think in this day and age, it's literally, I know we've talked a lot of shit about social media, but again, it is one of those really powerful tools that if you use it in the right way, it can be really, really healing. So just following people that inspire you or following people that are interested in the same thing and literally just sparking up conversations, sliding into DMs. Like you can use that to your
Yeah.
advantage, but also go, I say this as dating advice to my clients as well, but go to the places that your next level self goes to, or your future self, or that identity you're stepping into if you're new to the wellness space or the holistic space, right? Think about that next version of you and go to breathwork events, breathwork classes, ice spa things. Like if that's your thing, go to circadian biology seminars, go to all these things and literally just introduce yourself to people. Like, hey, I'm Kaitlyn. Would it like, is this your first time here? Or like, have you been, like literally just go and be a human and go and make go and make some friends like that by being in the places that the friends that you want would be at. Don't go up to people at the bar and be like, hey, like, are you into blocking blue light? Like they'll probably be like, no, man, I'm into this beer as a generalization.
Yeah.
Um, in terms of predictions for the wellness industry, I think there's obviously been a huge online boom, right? Like everyone has pivoted because I'm in the coaching space as well, right? So there's been a huge pivot into online coaching businesses, and I think that there's a lot of online fatigue at the moment. So in-person events are going to really ramp up, and I think we're going to see a lot of in-person holistic events. However, my caveat to this is I think there might be a bit of separation. As, like you said, there's different sections of holistic wellness, right? And we have the people that are like yogi, vegan, holistic wellness that believe in these things, but then there's also like the grounding, quantum kind of holistic, and then you've got the circadian, then you've got the nervous system. So I wonder how all of that will sit with each other. I think though coming into like the end of 2026, 2027, we'll see it kind of like merging where we'll have hybrid people, which will go to the gym and do their weights and they're like gym bros, but they also are wearing their blue light blockers because they have more of a mainstream knowledge. So I think circadian, we've already seen this coming into play. There's that soccer player, I don't know his name, and I think it's a soccer player. I've seen it online somewhere, but there's a soccer
Erling
player
Haaland.
that's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, right? Like talking about blocking blue light. We're going to see it with a lot more athletes. We're going to see it in a lot more mainstream places where people are cottoning onto it. So I think it's going to be really widely accessible moving forward, which is really, really cool.
Yeah, I guess that's the power of social media, like niche interests just becoming mainstream. Um, but
Yeah.
you mentioned that you think there might be a lot more in-person events. Like, do you mean like breathwork retreats, like in Bali, for example?
Yeah. I just think there's so much online and there's so much noise, and especially when we're looking at holistic wellness, right? Because we've gone down to this way of everyone wants to run an online business because it's a really good way to live because you can travel and do whatever you want. But also, it gives you really extended reach because you're not confined to a geographic location. But I think because everyone's doing that, I mean, this is where my mentality is with opening up my own studio. But it's like if you're listening to this and you're like in this space, go and run in-person things
Mm.
because people are craving connection more than ever. And yes, we can connect with people online, but there's so much more power in connecting with people in person. And if I was listening to this and I was like in the holistic world, I would create like a holistic meetup. Like
Yeah.
go and create those tribes because as you said, it's really isolating, it's really hard, but what's more powerful than a group of like little circadian freaks sitting around learning about things and like sitting in their blue light blocking glasses or just like getting to connect with people and not feeling like an absolute weirdo. I think there's so much power in in-person events and we've kind of come away from them in this like online era, but I think they're going to come back. I think they're coming back in.
Yeah, because a lot of people I've spoken to, they'll tell me that like they've never met anyone else in person who talks about these things. So I'm
Yeah.
like, wouldn't it be lovely if I just got all these people and like made a group and we all hung out, like bonded over shared interests, bonded over being like the one weirdo in our mainstream friend groups.
Yes. Right. And
There's
how
like,
healing is that?
yeah,
Like we spoke about community before, and it's like, cool, I've got my tribe.
exactly. Um, and you've obviously got like an in-person studio. Um, so with that, is that like, do your clients, do they fall into that like holistic space or are they just like everyday people who would be attracted to it?
Yeah, we have a bit of both. So I run one class here, and then we run a yin class. So I run a breathwork class. And then we also do space hire. So our studio, and we've got two consult rooms. I'm in one at the moment, but it's all created for the nervous system in mind. So it's really calming. You can see it's like quite white. It's really like quite like a blank canvas kind of space where it's not too overpowering. We've got no screens, all of that. So we are a space that allows other practitioners to come in, holistic coaches, spinal energetics, chiropractors, podcasts, and have a space to create more magic and have more impact on the world. So we appeal to both communities, which is fun.
That's great because it's like you said, blending like the online holistic people with like real life connections. On the
Yeah.
topic of like wellness businesses, like wellness industries, what are some of the biggest mistakes you see people that holds people back from starting a wellness business?
Oh, I think with my clients, the biggest thing I see is they get stuck in comparison and they'll be following the big dogs in the industry, no matter who that is, whether you're a personal trainer or a health coach or whoever. And you'll see the big leagues and they'll have like 10, 20, 30, 100, 200K followers. And you expect to enter the industry at that level. And you stop yourself because you're not at that stage yet. And the biggest conversation I have with my clients is you've literally just got to start somewhere. And that person that you're looking up to and comparing yourself to didn't start there. They would have started 5 years ago, 3 years ago, 10 years ago, but they started somewhere as well. And you can't compare your day one to someone else's day 100. But people go, I'm not that person. I can't make reels like that. I can't speak to camera like that. I don't know enough. I don't blah, 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 blah. You only know enough because you only think you don't know enough because you're comparing yourself. But you right now, if you just started right now, you put your blinkers on, you didn't look at anyone else, you know enough. You can start now. Just start where you're at, meet yourself where you're at.
Yeah, because I think when people start, because a lot of people tell me that like they want to start content, but they don't know enough or they don't want to spread half truths. And I just tell them like,
Mhm.
well, when you actually force yourself to like post content, you're forcing yourself to like learn as you go. So I think that's
Yeah.
really helpful. And
Yeah.
I think a lot of people have like imposter syndrome where it's like
Yeah.
they just don't feel like they're equipped to take on a client or deal with like nervous system regulation. So how do you know if it's imposter syndrome versus like maybe this person just has to improve at what they do?
Yeah, yeah. Really interesting because I have this conversation a lot as well. Sometimes it is just like, okay, imposter syndrome is where your competence is higher than your confidence. So as in you have the skill, but you don't have the confidence to do it. But there's also on the other side of that, maybe you actually do need to just get better at what you do. Maybe maybe it's not imposter syndrome. Maybe you do need to get better at coaching or you do need to learn more or whatever. And I think the biggest way to do that is to not look for external things when you're creating content or speaking to clients. Because if you are staying true to you and you're staying within your scope of what you actually know, there shouldn't be imposter syndrome. There, yeah, you might feel like, oh, this is edgy because it's my first client, or like, oh, this is like a little bit deeper than what I've gone before. But when you're going, okay, well, fuck, how do I talk about nervous system regulation and you've never even read a book on nervous system or listened to a podcast, then you probably shouldn't be talking about that with your clients. Right. And I think there's probably different advice to what I've heard a lot of people in the industry say, where they like just work it out on the fly. To a degree, yes. But when you're working with people's health and their nervous systems, I think you need to be a little bit more careful. Right. So work within your scope, push your own edges, and learn by experiencing it. Like you said with content, you've just literally got to start. Your content isn't going to look like the people that have been doing it for 10 years. Right. And you probably, if you don't look back at your content in 6 months and go, ew, that's so embarrassing. I can't believe I thought that was the coolest thing ever, then you're not growing enough. I look back on some of my content, I'm like, that is disgusting. Or like, wow, there was a time that I was like promoting ice baths like 3 years ago. And I was like, you need to get an ice bath because it's this, 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 this. There's a time where I was like, if you eat red meat, you are disgusting. And now I'm like, lol, that's literally my whole entire diet. And like being okay with that. But in terms of half truths, sharing what you know, share what you know to be true, share from your experience. Don't share from if you're like, oh, this might be a half truth or like, I don't want to spread misinformation. Share from your experience with it because that will always be true. If you're trying to regurgitate facts or regurgitate information that's like a research study or like a factual piece of science, then that's where it gets a little bit murky. But no one can take your experience away from you. So share from that point.
Yeah, I think authenticity is key. People will
Yeah.
resonate with content if they might relate to it, or they might just appreciate the authenticity and the fact that you're not caring what other people think of you, or you're just sharing your thoughts and you're not worried about like people thinking you're weird or like, oh, this person has the wrong opinion. We have to like cancel him. But if you're just authentic,
Hmm.
then you'll attract the right people. And I think that's one of the best ways. Like, would you say that's one of the biggest factors which drives the success of someone's like wellness, business, content creation, all that?
Yeah. Well, you think about like we're in this age, I think influencer culture is dying a little bit, but typically we're in this stage where everything is curated, people are only sharing the highlights. And so for you to get up really authentically and share things from your point of view that may not necessarily be a highlight or be a huge win or be super successful, that's going to cut through the noise. And sometimes that's the most healing thing for someone. I always share things like around my studio where it's like actually this month hit me for a 6 because I got these huge bills that I didn't expect, or this was actually really hard. I launched something and it completely failed. And sharing from that point of view gives people an insight into things, and that's what connects you with someone. It's not just like, here's a perfectly curated photo of a room. If you're like sick, that's great.
Yeah, exactly. I think when people see their highs and lows of the journey, then they're like, okay, this person's relatable. I actually don't have to
Yeah.
be perfect. I actually can struggle, and maybe sometimes there might be a bit of self-doubt, but if this person's experienced it and they're here now, like um maybe I can do it and reach that destination.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And especially if you're like a health coach, you want to get into this space, like I'm sure that there was a person in your journey that you looked up to that gave you that. And sometimes we just need to borrow other people's belief systems and borrow other people's evidence until we have our own. And so maybe for you right now, it feels really impossible to launch the business or to help clients or to heal your own PCOS or like whatever it is. But can you find someone who's already done that and you can borrow their belief system? If it's possible for them, there's no reason it's not possible for you.
Right. Yeah, and I think with social media and like content creation, um and I'm guilty of this too, where it's like you're like, oh, this person's got 20,000 followers. Like, why can't I be where they're at? Like, this person gets like a couple hundred likes in every post, sometimes even thousands. But if your goal is like clients and authenticity and I guess making money through the wellness industry, then sometimes it isn't about like just how many followers you've got. Sometimes it's
Yeah.
like, well, you might have a lot of followers, but are these translating to people who actually want to work with you? That's why I think sometimes it isn't the best idea to just post a reel that goes viral because it like it could
Right.
go viral, but you're like, okay, but are the people liking this reel actually engaging with my content, and do they actually want to work with me as a client? And a lot of the times, the viral content's just like rage bait, and I think this goes back to what we said about like if I'm a health coach and I'm posting content about how you have to be like you don't want to be frying your dopamine receptors with doom scrolling, then I've got to respect my audience and I can't just be, taking advantage of their dopamine for my views or my
Mm.
likes or my engagement. And it just seems a bit dishonest and disingenuous. But I think if your goal is clients, then just simply going viral because you posted something controversial, it might attract people like to your page, but it might not be the best in terms of like clients and people working with you.
Yeah. Well, I don't equal follower number doesn't equal money or clients or integrity or embodiment. It just means you've got a high number of followers. And I've worked with clients before who have had like 50,000 followers and they've had no clients
Right.
because they're not actually posting anything of value. They haven't created a business, they've created a following. And so I think we get caught up in this like, oh, there's credibility, there's authority because they have 50,000 followers. It's like it actually doesn't mean anything. And like you said, we can post for virality, but that's a different type of ball game than posting for connection.
Right. Exactly. And then people get caught up with like credentials and qualifications where it's like these clients, like they might not work with someone who doesn't have these qualifications. But I think with people like us in the holistic space, we all sort of believe that like it's not about what types of qualifications you've got in like paper form. It's more also like how much research have you done? How good are you at your job? How well can you actually work with clients and understand them on that emotional
Mm.
level? So I think it also like I think credentials don't really mean anything when it comes to like working with clients and the holistic space.
I think pros and cons to both. I think both are important depending on the type of work that you do,
Yeah.
because there's an importance in lived experience and lived wisdom and your own research and all of that, particularly because what we do now isn't taught in universities, right? You can't go to a university and get this like qualification
Yeah.
in like quantum physics, holistic health, circadian, because
Circadian
it's actually just not
biology. Yeah.
it's not part of the curriculum, and like that's a whole nother topic of conversation of why it's not. But then when we look at say like nervous system work or breath work facilitation and more of the industry I'm in, I think that is important for not necessarily a certain qualification, but training and education, because then people can actually do more damage to the nervous system and like re-traumatize people because they don't have the training. So like yes and no, not always necessary, but also I think there is a real power in actually knowing what the fuck you're doing,
Right. Yeah. And just having that experience and um that social proof and just putting in the reps, I think. Like if you're someone
putting in the
who
reps.
like for me, I'm wanting to get into like blood work and symptoms, similar to like what Jordan Davey does, like
Hmm.
working with clients and um interpreting their blood markers, their symptoms, and you could get a qualification from some institute, but I think when there's so much like information and education on, because obviously you can't learn this at uni, you
Yeah.
can't learn anything to do with like looking at blood markers holistically or symptoms, because I'm at
Hmm.
uni and it's just not like that at all. Um, but when there's so much information online and like education from people like Jordan, Jack, Kira, like you can just learn from them. And they've obviously
Yeah,
put in the experience, they've put in the work, they've got the experience. So like investing in a mentor, I think that in this particular niche, it's a lot more useful than just like a qualification or a certification where you end up
absolutely.
spending like thousands of dollars on some institute just to get a qualification. And I think sometimes people just do it to justify their imposter syndrome. Like if I've got
That's
this like
interesting.
certificate, if I've got this certificate next to my name, like obviously it's not everyone, but I think some people might think, well, I've already got all this knowledge, but I still need this certificate just to prove to myself that I'm capable.
And then it begs the question of like, why does your worth come from a piece of paper?
Exactly. Yeah.
It's so interesting. And I agree. It's like this stuff isn't taught in universities, and there's ways to learn and ways to educate yourself through lived experience, through working with mentors, through your own research. And sometimes it's literally just learning as you go.
Right. Yeah. Like you don't have to be perfect before you start. Sometimes you just
What is that?
exactly. Sometimes you just have to force yourself to start, and then as you go, you'll get experience and you'll learn stuff, and you'll put in the reps, and eventually, like you'll never be perfect, but just like I don't think you'll ever be perfect. Like you're always learning, you're always developing new skills, and that's a great thing because it means that you've not. Like I say this a lot with like when people talk about like the medical system, like with science, the whole point is that we're learning
Hmm.
new discoveries. Um, if
Hmm.
once you've decided that you've like figured everything out, that's when like you start to become complacent, and then it just doesn't work like that. So I think with self-confidence, you just have to keep working on it, and you're never going to be perfect. But if you just put in the reps, then that will do wonders for your I guess improving the standard that you put out.
Yeah, it's always like being curious on how you can always do better, but also acknowledging like how far you've come. And self-confidence comes from self-trust, because you've actually got the evidence and you've done the reps in order to do it. And that's how you build your confidence. You don't build your confidence in painting by going and riding a bike. You
Right.
build your confidence in your holistic health business by actually fucking doing the things. You build your confidence in blood analysis by reading more bloods.
Exactly.
It's literally just about building and compounding that.
Yeah. And how much of an impact do you think like pe like pricing has on people's business. Because I think a lot of people start this comes with like imposter syndrome where they're like, I can't charge this much money for a client because I've just started.
Hmm.
Whereas some other people might be like, well, if I charge too cheap, then am I devaluing the work that I put out? Like, do you work with clients who struggle with pricing and how this relates to self-confidence?
Yeah, yeah. And my advice to them, because this is the thing, right, of like, I don't want to undervalue the work that I do. And this might sound really, really savage, but if you're new, you don't have it yet, right?
Right.
And you are not, and this is so, like, I will hold everyone's hand as I say this, but if you are brand new in the industry, then it is much more important for you right now to get your reps in and to get your experience, to get your social proof and your testimonials than it is to make money. And
Right.
so I would always offer people to do it at a really, really low cost, if not for free, for the first few clients, because you are going to learn so much more in those, say, like you take on three clients for 12-week protocols, right? 12, 24, 36, essentially 36 weeks of working with clients. That is like, you can't even fathom the amount of experience and knowledge that you are going to gain from them just by having that instead of getting the money from it. That's what you're actually gaining. Then you're also getting, say that's three clients, you're getting all the social proof, right? Of people messaging you, because that's big if you're running an online business of like, oh my God, Kaitlyn, you'll never believe it. I just got my period for the first time in 2 months. Blah, 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 blah. Sick, share, right? That's your proof, right? Then you're getting written testimonials at the end. The money exchange doesn't actually matter at the start because I can guarantee you by the end of those 12 weeks in those clients, you're going to be like, fuck, okay, this worked, this didn't work. I would improve this, I would change this, I would flip this. And then you're ready to start charging for clients. You've also got to think, and I said this to a client the other day, if you're new and you come in guns blazing and you're like, yeah, it's $3,000 to work with me for 10 minutes, right? And you can't deliver that result. What do you think people are going to do? Are they going to come back to you or are they going to just like talk shit about you and be like, that was a waste of money? But if you say, yeah, 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 come in, come work with me for 6 weeks, it's going to be $30, like, let's just say like $300. These are the expectations. But then you blow them out of the water and you've absolutely over delivered. They've got the best value for money. What are they going to do? They're going to be like, oh my God, I'm never going to shut up about this person. Right? I'm going to go tell this person. I'm going to tell this person. I'm going to overhear someone in a coffee shop. They're like, do you have gut issues? Let me tell you about this person I just worked with. Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Does that make
It
sense?
does, yeah, because this is obviously something I've struggled with, but I think when you're, like you said, when you're new, the priority should just be like experience and that in-person, or I guess that just like social connection. Because obviously you can have all the knowledge that you want, all the knowledge that you have, but if you're not prepared or you're nervous and you can't actually answer people's questions on the spot, that experience to me is so much more valuable than just like memorizing all these like biochemistry
Yeah.
mechanisms. So I think you would say just start prioritize like social connections, um, charge it cheap if you have to at the start. And then once you've built up that social proof, then you can charge higher and
Yeah.
take advantage of those testimonials that you got.
Yeah. Build it, build it, build it, build it, but let it start where you're at. And it's one thing to know, all, like you said, all the fucking like chemical, the hormone, blah, 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 blah. But can you actually simplify it to a client that has no idea what dopamine is?
Exactly, yeah.
Because that's a skill, right? It's
Yeah,
great that you know all of these ins and outs of how the body works to the nth degree. But if you can't translate that to the everyday client, then you've completely gone over their head and you've lost them,
right.
right? And you get that through experience in doing it. So start low. Do your first 5 clients for free. Build that up, and they're like, you are fucking amazing. I've still got a client that was with me from the very start. She was one of my first clients, and I charged her $666 because it obviously had to be an angel number. And we did 12 weeks, and I had absolutely no clue what I was doing, right? One of my very, very first clients. And she stayed with me because she's been able to grow with me through the 4 or 5 years that I've been doing this,
Yeah,
right? But you can't get to those top prices unless unless you, like, I would just let yourself build up to it.
right. And if you're a new coach, do you think it's important to like disclose to your clients that you're new? Is that like good in terms of authenticity, or is that will that like create like uncertainty, doubt in that client?
It depends on the client. I wouldn't
Yeah.
lie to clients and be like, I've been doing this for 30 years. Like, I think that that's really, really misleading. But there's ways that you can say it of like, I'm trialing a new offer, or like, I haven't worked with a client this way before. Right? But you can't lie to people. And also there's different clients for different levels. So the clients that let's use Jordan as an example because you brought him in. The clients that will be attracted to his work and his caliber, his level, are not going to also be on the same frequency, similar to how we were talking about this before, the same frequency as a new health coach who has 40 minutes of industry experience and one Instagram post. They are literally, and it's not to say one's better and one's worse, but they're not going to attract the same clients. So when you're new, the type of clients that you will be speaking to will be so much different, separated from the people that would be attracted to other people's work. So I don't think it's necessary to lie and say that you've been doing this longer than you have. But it's like sometimes it's cool to be like, I haven't taken on any clients before. These are my first clients. Like again, coming back to the authenticity piece.
Yeah.
I'm I'm running this new way. I've got this new 12-week protocol. I've got this new business. I'm taking on my first 5 clients for holistic healing, holistic health, whatever it is. The first 5 are free. Sign me the fuck up. What have I got to lose? And everything to gain.
Yeah.
Instead of letting your ego get in the way and be like, I've been doing this for 35 years and it's $0. Like everyone will be like, what?
Exactly.
Because they'll know as soon as they get in there with you in that conversation, they'll know.
Yeah. And it goes back to authenticity. Like clients might like it if you're being honest and you're not pretending that you're this expert who can fix everything.
Absolutely. And if it's like, and the amount of times I say to my clients, this is a bit out of my scope, or you know what? I'm not the person for you. Let me put you in touch with blah, 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 blah. Right.
Right.
And that it's again authenticity. If there's something that you don't know, you can say, I'm not really sure. Let me get back to you, or I'm going to ask my mentor this. I'm going to come back to you with this answer, or I actually don't deal with perimenopause, but I can find someone who does.
Right. Yeah. That's again goes back to authenticity. And I think this is the
Yeah.
key thing that's holding a lot of people's wellness businesses back. Um, but I think that was pretty much it, unless there's anything else you'd like to add.
Oh, love it. Thanks so much. That was so fun.
Yeah, so where can people find you to work with you?
Yes. You can find me on Instagram at Kaitlyn Menere. Yeah, chuck me a DM. Let me know what lands. Would love to have some conversations.
Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. Share it with a friend if you learned a lot from it, or if you think this would be of great value to other people. But yeah, thank you everyone for listening.